Welcome to the Low Production, High Value Show with your host, Andrew Jenkins. On the show, we'll be exploring the world of entrepreneurship, social media, and the growing digital landscape. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, you know that the world of business is constantly evolving and changing. And in today's digital age, it is more important than ever to understand how social media and technology are affecting the way we do business. That's why on this show, we'll be talking to entrepreneurs and experts who have a wealth of knowledge and experience to share with you. From the latest trends and technologies to the struggles and triumphs of running a business, we'll be covering it all. So if you're looking to level up your entrepreneurial game and become more digitally savvy, then let's get started with the Low Production, High Value Show.
Welcome to the latest episode. Today's guest is Emily Baillie. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So to get things started, you've been in digital marketing for a number of years, and a lot of what today's discussion is going to focus on artificial intelligence. And I just like you to talk to us about how you made that shift in focus, shift in emphasis from digital marketing. Not that you've left it behind, but the incorporation now of AI and your focus on it. How did that come about?
Well, with over 15 years in the marketing industry, I've seen a lot of trends come and go, and I do a lot of strategy work for businesses, helping them navigate trends, helping them navigate change, and building a strategy that's going to take them into the future of their business or nonprofit organization in some cases. So here comes artificial intelligence, which, by the way, is not a trend. And I see such a huge impact here happening on folks all across the country in every different industry at every different level within the marketing community. I myself dove in straight away just to explore and sort of educate myself on what these tools are all about, what they can do in a practical sense, and what kind of impact they may have on the future of our industry. I'm also an educator, a part-time professor. So I want to make sure I'm preparing my students and my clients for the best possible position that they could be in. So the artificial intelligence thing was sort of an evolution of my business in the sense that I started offering a bit of strategy, a bit of training on AI as how it relates to marketing, in addition to my other digital marketing trainings and consulting. And that side of things, Andrew, just really took off. So it's the number one most requested topic that I get. And I understand why, because it's such a broad topic. It's such a big thing. It's very hard for folks to ignore. And in fact, everyone's sort of trying to figure out what it means and how they can utilize it in their own work, as well as prepare for a future that is absolutely going to be impacted by artificial intelligence.
Well, when folks are approaching you either to speak or to train, what are sort of some of the top triggers? Is it unfamiliarity, or is it more specific as in adoption and incorporation into their work environment, maybe a bit of both? What are the triggers and where does their interest lie?
I think a lot of folks who are in the business community and the nonprofit world are under pressure to do more with less. And I think since COVID, that's become more apparent. I think that people are seeing AI as a bit of an opportunity to perhaps help to boost efficiency, not replace them or replace their staff by any means, but perhaps to help them scale their work and amplify the great work that they are already doing. So the folks that find me, the folks that come to me, the folks that, hire me for workshops and corporate training and that sort of thing, they typically will already know that AI is something that they need to learn, but they don't always know where to start. And they need someone to break down these very complex concepts and terms into language that anyone can understand, whether you're nearing retirement, whether you're just starting out in the industry, whether you're working for an agency or whether you're a small business. I work with folks all across different industries and really help them figure out what is AI, and really what does it mean for them. And I think that is sort of what folks like, in the sense that we're breaking it down into sort of manageable pieces. We're not going to learn every single thing about AI in one day, but if we break it down and we say, okay, let's spend, 1 hour or 2 hours together, and let's really dive in and let's look at some tools. Let's explore those tools together so that they can get some hands-on experience with prompting and different use cases. Then they walk away feeling a little more confident to continue that journey. And everyone is learning AI. As you know, Andrew, it continues to change and evolve. And the speed of development for these tools is just wild. Like it's really unprecedented how quickly the AI tools themselves are being developed, and how many are entering the marketplace every week. So it's a bit like chasing the horizon, but I think a lot of folks are doing really, really well because they're saying, okay, this is something that I know I need to pay attention to. This is a skill that I'm willing to learn. And this is something that I can do to protect my business, protect my career, and put me in a good position for the coming change that will inevitably come. I do believe that AI will disrupt our workforce in many different ways. And the best thing people can do is have at least a bit of those AI skills that they can bring to the table, to whether they're being employed by someone else or they're running their own organization.
One of the most interesting takes I've heard of late is, I mean, the cliche has been, AI is not going to take your job, but people who know how to use AI will. But to take that a step further, people that are worried about, oh, there's going to be job losses, probably there will be some. But I think organizations with 50 people are going to be less inclined to hire and more focused on making the 50 people they already have more productive. But even though that might be an objective, I still think there's myths, misunderstandings, unrealistic expectations about AI and its related adoption. So I'm wondering, what are, with all the feedback you get from workshops, and I'm sure questions and things like that, what are some of the biggest misunderstandings, unrealistic expectations, or myths you have to dispel?
Great question. So there's a lot of fear around artificial intelligence among some people. And I understand this because the data security, the privacy considerations, there's a lot of things that are real that have not been worked out by the developers, the owners of these apps that we're using, these platforms, and society at large, our governments, etc. There's going to need to be more guardrails in place, and I'm not seeing a lot of those guardrails just yet. So that is a fear that I think is partly founded, but I encourage folks to find a way through that by using artificial intelligence, starting small, perhaps with a small project or even a hobby that they could apply, and learn to use it, learn the skills needed to use it, and do so with caution. So make sure you're not sharing any sensitive information about yourself, your business, your employer. Don't upload any protected data, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of safety things that I cover in every session that I do. So the fear factor is one that is holding some Canadians back, for sure. I think the second thing is that some people think that AI can do work as good as a human. And sometimes they're surprised when I tell them, listen, you're still the boss. You are still the expert. You're just using AI to do some of the legwork. You can think of it as a personal assistant. A personal assistant isn't going to know everything on day one. You're going to need to train them. You're going to need to give them feedback. You're going to need to correct some of their mistakes. So yes, it can be a huge help for folks in the workforce, but it's not still quite as, let's say, talented or skilled as a human. And I think that's a good thing, because I don't think our society is quite ready yet. This is my opinion, for these tools to sort of outsmart us or make us less useful. in the marketing community that you and I are both in, Andrew, the human creativity is so important. And as now, AI can't compete with that.
Someone described it as it's a second brain. It's an assistant idea that you just shared. This idea that it doesn't have independent thought. It's not a computer per se, but the proverbial garbage in, garbage out of computer programming. It's not very different in this instance. But you touched on something about some of the guidance that you give in some of the workshops. So when you're in front of a group, where are you telling them to start? And I suspect it's not with the AI itself. It's putting some fundamental things in place first before they start down that path. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, it depends on the client. So some business groups will bring me in to do training. Some companies and nonprofits will hire me to do training for their groups, and some folks in those cases are already using AI. A lot of folks I'm finding are starting with ChatGPT still, and it's not a bad place to start. As you know, it's a pretty general, or I don't want to say it's generic, but it's a versatile LLM, and it's often the place that people go because that's what they know. That's the tool that they've heard of.
Kudos to them
Um,
for their brand marketing.
exactly, yeah. Something about being first out the gate, and they're still ahead of the pack, I suppose. Um, but usually folks that come to me, they're already sort of using it. So what we tend to focus on is, okay, how can we use it for your particular business goals? Like, what is it you're trying to accomplish here? Where do you have some areas where AI can help? And let's look at those in a practical sense. So I'll give you an example. If you are an entrepreneur and you spend too much time on social media, which many of us do, here comes a tool or a set of tools that can help to create some of that content, perhaps build out a content calendar for you, automate some of that workflow so that you're not spending your days scrolling through social media. You're spending your days on your business, building your business, growing your business, actually serving your clients, et cetera, et cetera. So in the marketing community, the social media is often where people will start in the implementation. And everything that I do in terms of strategy and training, it's really customized to where that group is in their level of knowledge and their comfort level. So some folks haven't used AI before, and that's okay. We start at the beginning. Some folks are really immersed in it, and they're what I like to call AI enthusiasts, but their organization hasn't provided them any official training or any official, usage policies or things like that. So that's an area where there can be a little bit more growth. We can kind of say, okay, let's sit down as a team and figure out, when are we allowed to use AI and when are we not allowed to use AI? And let's get everyone on the same page here so that person A isn't working on AI off the side of their desk when person B has no idea what they're doing. So it's all about kind of getting everyone sort of at the same level and helping them to take that next small step, whatever that may look like for them.
But in terms of a place to start, are you advising some? So I'll use an example. When I was with the Royal Bank, there wasn't a compliance solution in place for mortgage specialists and financial advisors to use social, so that their social posts were archived for auditing purposes. Well, I introduced a solution that ultimately won the RFP. I introduced a number, but the reason that was brought into place was because there was rogue behavior. There were people that were already they were more of in the camp of better to be asking for forgiveness than permission. I recognize there's lots of people using AI, whether their employer knows it or not, but is there discussion about, even if it's rudimentary, about at a minimum set some parameters or some fence it in a bit so that people have a sense of what they can and cannot do, but then within those constraints they can experiment. Is that Talk to me
Exactly.
about that.
Yes. Yes. That's a great approach. Having some guidelines in place, some do's and don'ts, let's call them. And certainly with every training and every workshop I do, I spend at least a little bit of time on the don'ts. And not to be a buzzkill, but there's a lot of things you should not be doing when it comes to artificial intelligence. And you know this,
What are your
Andrew.
top ones?
Top don'ts are: don't put your customers' data into the free version of ChatGPT. Don't upload their names. Don't upload their email addresses. Don't upload their buying habits, this sort of data, unless you've scrubbed the data. Because guess what? That information is stored for training purposes by default. Now, if you have other tools that have better security considerations, then, that may not be as much of a concern. But for folks who are just starting out, it's imperative that they understand, no business numbers, no credit card information, no client data, et cetera, et cetera. You could put client comments, for example, client feedback patterns, that sort of thing. But don't put their names and their addresses and things like that.
Anonymize as much as you can, if you can.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's the very basics, I would say. But some people don't know that. They don't understand how AI tools are trained and how they get better with time, but they get better because they're storing your information that you feed to them each time. And they're saving it by default so that they can understand your preferences better. So it's just better to be on the safe side when dealing with anyone else's data, I believe. So we usually start there.
The fastest thing that somebody scrolls through is the terms of service to get to the accept.
100%. 100%. We're all guilty of that. Yeah, sounds good. Accept.
Because they want access to whatever it is. But I think back to, one of the reasons, and this is not making fun of myself in the back, I never shared pictures of my children on Facebook because the terms and conditions were, if you uploaded a picture, that became the property of Facebook. And I thought, how is it that Facebook should own my images of my children?
Yes.
And they
and
could
now
end
we
up,
have Meta. Now we have Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, with their own AI tool. And
open source too.
Open source. Exactly.
Mm.
So guess what? Your photos and all the content you put on there, can be made available to this training tool. So there's a lot of murky waters here, Andrew, and there's a lot of questions that I think need to be answered. I think when it comes to business and marketing, folks should be using AI. They should not be afraid, but they should also understand that they need to do so strategically and have some training and have some education so that they're feeling good about it and they're not feeling overwhelmed.
Well, what are your sort of top strategic considerations for an organization when they're thinking about AI adoption? Do they do a kind of a workflow audit? Where do you tell them to sort of do some self-examination or reflection first?
Yeah, usually folks are in the marketing department more so that I'm dealing with, or they're small businesses, and they usually have a pretty good sense of what they want AI to do. Definitely workflow is a big one. So for example, Notion is a workflow tool that's powered by AI that a lot of content creators and marketing pros are really excited about. It can kind of speed up their work or boost their productivity, which is great. There's a tool called Jasper, which creates pretty high quality written content and other types of content for marketing purposes. Folks are finding pretty good success with that. So some of it is really just learning about the different tools that are available and seeing if those tools match or can help solve a business problem. Maybe they don't have enough resourcing to scale up their marketing efforts as much as they would like to, and they can use AI tools to help create that content. Certainly AI can help with marketing strategy, but again, I caution people against farming out their AI strategy to or their marketing strategy to an AI tool. Humans are still better, but you can use it for brainstorming purposes. I'll often do that if I'm at home. I work from home and I often work by myself. sometimes I'll say, give me 10 topics for a blog post for XYZ audience. And then I just scan through that list and I pick out one or two that I think are useful, and then I can expand on those. So I use it as a brainstorming tool, and some folks don't know that that's a good use of AI, and that enough is to that next step that they need to just start experimenting more and going back and forth. I do think that prompting skills are really critical, though, and this is an area where folks do need a little bit more education or a little bit more experience if they're new to AI. I told a group the other day that top marketers will sometimes tell me they iterate on a prompt, meaning they go back and forth with an AI tool about 12 times on one single piece of content, and that's normal. So folks are sometimes surprised because if they take the first pass and they take the first output that they get, often that's not going to be high quality. And the last thing you want to do is start publishing content that's not high quality, that can damage your brand, that can damage your business, and quite frankly, it looks lazy. So you can develop good content with AI, but you have to know how to do it, and you have to be willing to invest some time and some practice and some training into getting there.
Well, I find, and our clients ask us, do you use AI for content? I say yes, but let me qualify my answer. We don't use it to write original content. We use it for derivative content, for content we've authored. Now, we can use AI as a foundation to research, ideate, make suggestions, etc., for even the original content, but we, as humans, still write it. I have, as good as Claude is in its most recent iteration in writing, and that's what we use predominantly in that regard, we still don't trust it to author something from scratch that we ultimately then have to read from an editing point of view. I mean, nothing goes out that hasn't been reviewed by a human being anyway. But which leads me to a question about, so you talked about sort of the easy place for people to start is with ChatGPT. And one of the most, and I want to come to prompting in a second, but one of the most interesting things I saw recently when I was having a similar conversation to what we're having now was my guest just fired up their ChatGPT on their phone and said to ChatGPT that it had named Sam. Hi, Sam. He had already established that the ChatGPT would allow him to call it Sam, and said, if I was new to AI, what are the three things you would tell me to do? And I've been saying to people, it's called ChatGPT. It's called chat for a reason. Have a conversation with it. Don't get hung up like that. You have to talk to it in some scientific way. And even when it comes to prompting, I will ask it to help me optimize my prompt. And you iterate and you iterate and you fine tune. And as you get more versed and you can do custom instructions and save projects inside Claude and so on, well, that's further down the line of experience. So all that to say, and the last thing I'll comment on in terms of interesting applications. So I'm talking to you today. I sent you some questions in advance to give you a sense of where we were going. A friend of mine, another podcaster, had written a custom GPT called myshowrunner.com that helps podcast prep. And I put in your about section of your LinkedIn and I cut and paste a portion of your experience section and said, here's what we're going to talk about. And it gave me, 30 questions. I'm not using all of them, but it was like, okay, I like that, I like this, like that. And I'm not starting from a blank slate. And We're still having a conversation. But that's just, and I'm not trying to make this all about me, but these are just, I'm sharing some examples of, like, you can take this nebulous thing of, it's bigger than I can get my head around. You can break it down into little things that you can manage. So anyway,
Exactly.
I'm going to
And,
stop
and
my
that's what I
spiel.
encourage. There's so much to explore.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing that. I do encourage people to start small and be open to experimenting. You might get some silly answers. You might get some feedback at first that isn't quite spot on, but that's how you learn to iterate, and that's how you learn to explore new uses. And like you said, you can absolutely ask the AI tool to help you craft the prompt. One thing that I like to do is ask AI tools to act as editor. So I will draft a piece of communication. Maybe it's my weekly newsletter, maybe it's a LinkedIn post, maybe it's a blog post. So I've written the draft myself, and then I ask the tool to act as editor and revise or provide me feedback. And I find that's a very good use of AI. It's not writing it for me, but it's helping me do my work a little bit faster and a little bit better. And I think that's truly the opportunity that AI brings at this stage as we speak, helping people do what they're already doing, only hopefully a little bit faster and a little bit better.
Well, it's like having a second set of eyes on it, even though it's not another human being. One of the someone who writes content for me will use it to argue the counterpoint to a blog that they're authoring. One, to make sure that the argument or stance or position they're taking is now more substantive or more well founded, because they're doing this juxtaposition or playing AI off itself to evaluate the topic being discussed. And I think it's fantastic. And it's kind of like, well, I'm preparing for a debate, or I'm preparing for a panel. What questions could I anticipate on this subject matter? Or what should I be prepared to speak for?
And now, a word from our sponsor. Social media has become an imperative for almost every business. Discover how to successfully implement an effective social media strategy that is supported and integrated throughout every part of your organization with this essential book from our host, Andrew Jenkins. Social Media Marketing for Business, Scaling an Integrated Social Media Strategy Across Your Organization, is now available from Amazon or KoganPage.com.
No, that's a great use. And one that I heard recently from a client was they had their sales staff, they had them use an AI tool to record and provide transcripts from all of their sales calls. They took those transcripts, they fed them into AI, and they asked the AI tool for look for opportunities, look for patterns. Then they incorporated those, questions that they kept getting or hesitations they kept hearing. They then use that to refine their content and refine their marketing from the messaging standpoint. So it was quite a useful endeavor for them, and one that really worked well.
Well, common objections and how to overcome them. I mean, I think, and even before ChatGPT, social media listening solutions use AI for natural language processing. And I remember seeing someone speak who worked for Salesforce. They had acquired a company called Radiant 6 years ago, and they talked about how they were doing social media listening. They were listening for the names of competitors and what was being said about them, and they would provide that feedback directly to the product team, saying, here's what's being talked positively about our competitors, negatively, to inform the product roadmap, things like that. And so AI has been around a lot longer than we think, and not talked about in the same way as it is now.
That's right.
But I wanted to ask you, so we talked about ChatGPT, I've mentioned Claude, recognizing things could change in 6 months.
100%.
But what are
and they probably will, Andrew.
What are the tools that you're using, or sort of part one, part two? What are the ones that are potentially emerging that you find interesting and that you're playing around with, or have sort of earmarked? I'm going to be taking a closer look at those.
Great question. So Claude, I'm diving into a lot more. It's giving me really great results, which is is really exciting. I'm using ChatGPT 4.0 as well. I do find it works well for a lot of my purposes. I like using the app version so that I can just speak. I can use voice and I can go back and forth with ChatGPT 4.0 while I'm on the go. Very convenient for me. Opus Clip is a great video editing tool that is powered by AI. It will take a full length video, MP4 file or video link and break it up into several social media optimized clips with captions already on them. It will also rate them in terms of their virality and their hook, et cetera, et cetera. Saves a lot of time. That's a really good one. Notion is great for workflows. A lot of folks are excited about that one at the moment. There's new ones coming out all the time. There's almost too many, Andrew, to keep up with. I have used Copilot. Some people are like Copilot. It's a matter of preference. I think for some people, I encourage people to try it out, see if you like it, and if it suits your purposes, then great. Most of these tools have a free trial period, and you can decide then if it's worthwhile to invest in for your business. Even Canva has a lot of AI tools now built in. If you have a Canva Pro subscription like I do, you can unlock some of those tools for design purposes, etc. ChatGPT 4.0 also has the image creation tools embedded in it. It's included. So I like that aspect of it. But I do a lot of Canva training for groups and individuals virtually. And a lot of people are excited about how they can kind of take a lot of their social media marketing and their content creation, apply AI tools within that, voiceovers, avatars, create videos that don't have them in them, but they have another likeness, copyright free, and then they can use that for explainer videos and things like that. So there's a lot of really cool stuff to dive into. Each week in my e-newsletter, I talk about different tools and different things that I'm working on, as well as upcoming workshops that I have. So folks are more than welcome to join in there as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of my designers uses Canva to create some animations. So we had some raw video from a client from a on-site location, and so Canva, enhanced by AI, created the intro and the outro animations. We wrote a script. I have an AI tool that does voiceovers. So the voiceover is now an English woman speaking the script, and all I had to do was make sure the script was written in phonetically, so it didn't trip itself up. And now we have a 1-minute video case study. Never had to visit the client location, never had to send a video crew, and so again, and I have a film and television background, and what we can do now without leaving our home and not stepping away from our desktop is pretty mind blowing. But like you, I use ChatGPT 4.0, Opus Clip, Claude. I also like to use Perplexity. Before Claude was available in Canada, what I liked about it was Perplexity gave you access to both. But for those who aren't familiar, Perplexity refers to itself as the answer engine. Now, that was before OpenAI announced SearchGPT that's coming out soon. You can get on the waiting list. But I liked it for research. And I've shared this example before, but for your benefit, we have a B2B client, and they were only on X and LinkedIn. And we wanted to make a case for them to socialize internally about adopting the meta platforms, at least Facebook and Instagram, especially for corporate employer branding and recruitment. And so I went on Perplexity and I said, please provide stats data, and I'm paraphrasing. I set the stage about running a business case for this client for this reason. I need data specific to Canada to justify adding Facebook and Instagram 2023 to 2024 in terms of recency. spit out the results. And then I said, organize this into a 4 to 6 slide presentation, which it did. We had the PowerPoint template, and we moved the data over from Perplexity into the PowerPoint presentation. So 15 minutes of research, maybe an hour or two of the presentation.
Amazing.
And so
Yes, it's great.
that's where, like, so again, didn't no one lost a job, but the existing team got more productive.
Exactly. Yeah, that's fantastic. I also like Perplexity. I've used it in, I have a Humber micro credential. It's AI for digital communicators. We're launching another round in October. Folks can join from anywhere because it's virtual. And in our last session, we really dove into Perplexity, and a lot of folks were really surprised and excited by this tool that gives you the source links up front. And it's a great alternative to ChatGPT because you can then verify all your research sources, make sure they're current, make sure they're up to date, make sure they're credible first and foremost. And that can be a huge help.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it brings in videos from the YouTube if you want to do a deeper dive. Maybe you're finding the same thing. I find myself like Perplexity for research. I use ChatGPT more as a backup. For data analysis, I like to use it over Claude. For writing, I like to use Claude. Now, I recognize for people listening or watching this on YouTube, it's like, that's a lot of tools. Yes, I get that. I mean, you and I are in the space, and I'm just driven by curiosity. So I'm always looking for the next bigger, better breadbox. But you learn over time, it's like, oh, again, it's what is the task at hand? What is the most suited? But which leads me to a question for you. Do you recommend try all the free stuff, experiment, see what you like, what's the easiest for you to gravitate to or adopt? Is that a good place for folks to start?
I think if folks are new to AI, that's a good place to start. ChatGPT will give you some experience in learning how to prompt effectively, and that's really an important first step. But a lot of the more advanced tools have free trials. So don't be shy about taking on a free trial and seeing if it works for you and your business. Every person is different. Every business is different. Every, department is different. So I don't believe there is a one size fits all. I do encourage folks to experiment a little bit. Of course, keeping in mind, don't share anything that's sensitive or anything like that, but play around with it. Ask it for a recipe, like talk to the AI tool, have a conversation, and get a feel for the style. You can also take the same prompt and drop it into maybe 3 different LLM tools. This is a tactic a lot of folks are doing now. And of course, they get 3 different responses. And from those 3 different responses, let's say it's, Microsoft Copilot, Gemini, Claude, and maybe ChatGPT, they can then see which response is strongest, which response gives them the most positive outcome. And then from there, they can iterate and expand on that and develop that material further. So that's a good exercise for folks to get a feel for which tool suits them and their purpose as well.
Which response looks more credible.
Exactly.
Well, and I make nothing. I'm not an affiliate marketer for Perplexity. When people have asked me, I said, well, one reason to consider Perplexity is that within the settings, you can specify that you want, and you can prompt it. It's not just a search tool. You can write in a prompt and send it to ChatGPT, or you can send it to Claude, or you can send it to Mistral out of France. Now, many people haven't heard of Mistral, but I always say follow the money. And Microsoft invested in OpenAI, makers of ChatGPT, and they also invested in Mistral. So they're betting on 2 horses.
Yes, better odds.
Yes, and then I think Amazon or Jeff Bezos invested in Anthropic, which is makers of Claude.
Yes.
And they invested in Perplexity as well. Mm-hmm. But Perplexity is like one tool that gives you access to all the others. Mm-hmm. So if it's about a budgetary issue or whatever, that might be something worth considering. But
Absolutely.
I gave my students a task of play around. I don't care what tool you use, write a prompt for whatever you want, and then share the output and talk about, did it meet or exceed your expectations? Did it, fail? But some did a business application, some did a meal planning, some did exercise, some did travel. I'm curious, what's one or more of the most interesting examples that you've seen of an application of AI? And it doesn't
That's
have
a
to be business, but just
That's a
like,
great question. Yeah, I think some of the more interesting ones actually are not business related. It's people like using AI as a trainer. So, say they want to eat better, they want to get into better shape, don't we all? They actually, will ask an AI tool like ChatGPT to act as their trainer and build them out a schedule or a training program, and they could input things like how many times a week they're available to exercise, what foods they do and don't like, allergies, and then the tool can basically create like a customized program for them, much like a personal trainer would. We love personal trainers, but here's something you can do at home, at least to get you going, and list out some exercises and things for you to try to improve your health and fitness. So that to me is kind of an innovative way of improving your own life, but doing it in a way that really doesn't cost you anything. It just costs you the time that it takes to ask ChatGPT to set it up. So I think that's a cool one.
and you can keep asking it to like refine it, and you can combine both the physical training and like meal planning, like
Mhm.
where there might be a combination.
Exactly.
You want
So
a
on a
nutritional
workout
plan.
day, you need more protein in the morning, et cetera,
Yeah.
and it can make all those adjustments. And to me, that's pretty cool.
But I was playing around with it recently. This was still, albeit a business application, but it goes back to what I was saying earlier about using AI to break down these big objectives, big tasks into bite-sized, manageable things. And so, just on a whim, I said, my revenue objectives for the business is X in 2 years. Current revenue is Y. Average uh, revenue per client is Z. And being conservative, if I have a 10% closing ratio, how many prospects do I need to have? Like a paraphrase, bring it all down. And so it took this large objective in my head that's several years out and brought it all the way down to, oh, I just need to talk to X number of people per month starting next month. Oh,
Great.
actually,
Yeah.
that's not that hard.
That's doable. That's doable. You have your marching orders.
Yeah, and but so I can ask more questions of it, and this which we've both talked about is this idea of just talk to it,
Yes.
and that um, it's not like you're taking orders from it, but you can play around, take what's reasonable for you to adopt, or what you can manage, whatever. But like test, experiment, try some ideas. What if I did this? Just like because it costs you
Yep.
nothing to pose the question.
Exactly. You can get very blue sky, and I quite like that. I encourage people to think big when they're talking to AI. And you can also give the tool feedback. Like if it gives you a stupid answer, you can write back and say, this is not useful or this is incorrect. And don't be shy about doing that, because that's going to help the tool to understand your preferences going forward. And the more you use it, the better outputs you could expect to get. So if you're not happy with the first pass, don't just walk away. Try again. Restructure your prompt. Write it in a different way. Maybe try a different tool. But also, don't be afraid to give feedback. ChatGPT has thumbs up and thumbs down buttons embedded in it for a reason. You just have to click them. It's very user friendly. But you could also say, that's not what I was looking for. Can you please try again? This time with more emphasis on customer targeting or whatever it is that you're looking for. So you want to be specific, but like you said, have that conversational element, much like you would with a human personal assistant that you're training to grow and be more useful for your business.
Well, that makes me think. I want to run something by you. So you're providing feedback. But let's take that a step further, or be more preemptive, whereby, because there's been some conversation around asking any of the AI tools to show their work or explain their reasoning behind whatever it is. And by the mere request for them to think and explain why it did what it did, there's speculation or belief that it improves the quality of the output. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are.
Interesting. That's so interesting. To be honest, I haven't tried that, but I'm glad you brought that up because I would love to see the tool explain how it reached that conclusion. And I also think that that type of information is useful because what I'm hearing from a lot of educators and parents is that they're concerned that young folks will lean a little too heavily on AI. They will get the answer straight away, so to speak, without having to follow those steps and follow that process. So they're not learning the process to get from A to B. And that's
They'll
where something
absolve
gets
themselves to
lost.
AI.
Exactly. So having AI sort of explain and fill in those blanks, I think can be super useful.
You don't want AI to get your diploma for you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is like, it is merely a tool, and you have to learn how to use it. And his name is Alexander Manu. He is a professor at Rotman and a professor at OCAD. He's an industrial designer by training. And he gave a presentation about AI recently that I was sitting through. And as I said, he's an industrial designer by training. He showed some beautiful output from Midjourney. And I asked him, I said, do you see AI as replacing artists? He said, or architects or industrial designers, knowing what he was. He said no. And he explained why, which was AI may render a design, but someone who is trained as an industrial designer will know whether it is viable or not, credible or not, can be actually constructed, will actually succeed as a design or fail because they have the training to know there's a design flaw there, or no, you can't do it that way. And so AI has to be trained by a human being to be that discerning. We're not there yet. Maybe we may never be, but the discernment of an expert is still required. And I feel like,
Absolutely. 100%. I agree with you wholeheartedly. We are not at the phase where AI can replace human talent. Yes, it can aid us in our work, but I very much want folks to use AI to help them just sort of scale up and help them boost productivity and maybe get a little bit more done in their days so they can enjoy their time. I don't want it to lead to job loss. Like you said, that's probably inevitable in some industries, but then there's also new jobs that will be created from this. So it is an opportunity for folks who are willing and able to learn a new skill and start thinking about things in a new way, but also understanding that they are still in control of their career. They are still the experts, and the AI tools are simply working for them, not the other way around.
well, think about, I mean, 20 plus years ago, there was no need for a digital marketer.
Yeah, yeah. And look at
And
us now.
how big is the industry?
Exactly. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
to bring things to a close, if there was one takeaway, one recommendation, one thought to leave folks with, or to point them in the right direction, what would that be?
I would say just being open to learning a new skill. It's really as simple as that. Being open to learning something new and doing that continuously and consistently. This is not something you just learn and then you're done learning. This is something that requires all of us to continuously innovate, continuously upskill. And for some people, they find that tiring. I hear from people that go, I already have enough on my plate. I don't have time to learn this whole new thing. to those people, I would say keep going and break it down into smaller pieces. There's plenty of wonderful material on LinkedIn. You can follow me on LinkedIn for plain language AI tips. I also have a weekly newsletter written in plain language for anyone to join. But certainly just experimenting, like you said, Andrew, and just getting that comfort level up and getting excited, I think, about the future possibilities for this technology.
Well, and you raise a good point about like, so yeah, people will complain. I have a lot on my plate already. Well, it's like, would you like less on your plate, or to be able to better manage what's on your plate? It's going to take some commitment, some time, some effort, but there could be some relief in there. And again, it's just experimenting. Just take a few minutes. I've been telling people lately, instead of watching Netflix, I'll watch an AI video on YouTube while I have my coffee. Oh, here's somebody who's spending more time on it than I can. Will show me here's the latest way to use projects inside Claude, or they're doing a different application than I'd ever consider. Like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And it's just I'm just downloading like the Matrix.
Constantly learning something new. Yeah. And I think as marketers, we're used to that because the industry has changed so much in the past 10 years, 20 years, probably even longer. We're sort of programmed, I think, in a sense, to be open to that constant change and that continuous development. I think it comes naturally to a lot of us. And we have a lot of us that curious mindset. We're interested and excited about these things. But not everyone shares that. Some people are tired. Some people don't like the constant change. And that's where I think a little bit of my workshops or training or breaking it down into those bite-sized pieces. Okay, let's do this for 1 hour. And then at least at the end of the hour, you walk away feeling a little more confident. And some people are happy with that. That can at least get them moving in the right direction.
Well, and I think the example you gave earlier, if someone tested out using it personally, I'd like a meal plan. I'd like a travel itinerary, or a regimen for the gym, or like some nutrition help. Here's what I like. Here's what I don't. Whatever. And when the light bulb goes off, oh, well, that was easy, and it was something personal for them. Oh, let's see that. Let me try that at the office.
It's so cool. It's so cool seeing those light bulb moments that people of all ages and all backgrounds, I get to train people virtually and in person across Canada. And I absolutely love when they start diving into an activity that I give them. They see the results and they're like, wow, this is amazing. Like they're so surprised and they're so excited. And I just love seeing those moments where they get that clarity and that understanding that, okay, this is really amazing. Like I can do a lot with this. This never existed before. It's something completely new, but this is the new frontier. And so I hope that excitement will carry through. And I hope that some of those issues like the privacy, the bias, the ethical issues, I hope that there's some solutions on the horizon. I'm not sure who's in charge of all of this, whether it's the government, the corporations, parents, educators. Everybody probably has their piece to play, but I'm really hopeful that with some more protections in place, this can be a force for good.
You raise a good point. I think with the U.S. election imminent, and the discussion recently about parody content or misinformation, that they'll be forced to put in some regulations that will hopefully have some positive effect on it and give people that, mitigate some of the fear, mitigate some of the concerns, and give people some more comfort about, oh, I can use this a little more freely than I originally thought. And as you said at the outset, one of the biggest concerns people have about using it is fear. And if that can be addressed, then we could be into something. So time will tell. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. I enjoyed the conversation and appreciate everything that you shared. So thanks again.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Low Production High Value Show. Be sure to give us a rating and subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. Don't forget to check out Volterra at volterradigital.com to learn more about how they can support your social media marketing.